Right, here we are on the second pass now. We're going to take care of everything. We're going to go through and iron off any last little problems, take care of any keyframing that needs to be done, any better matching that might need to be done, and we're going to finish it off. We probably don't need a full third pass at the rate we're going, and that's fine. We don't always get a full 3 passes. It depends on how the project goes along. So this has been progressing quite nicely, and I'm just going to watch it through and see how things cut from one shot to the next, and then if something calls out to me, I'm going to put it right. So this is looking good. Okay, they look a little bit bright and airy compared, so we might just bring those down a little bit. And maybe just bring the saturation up ever so slightly. Let's see how those two are cut together. Okay, that's much better. Maybe just up a little bit. Cool, I'm happy with that. And that's fine. And then that's okay. Only thing that occurs to me, this looks a little bit bright now. I might just bring my highlights down a smidge. There we go. Let's just see how those two cut together. That's better. It was a little bit too bright before, so that's fine. That's all looking pretty stable to me. The skin here might look a little bit on the saturated side. I might just bring it down 1 or 2 points. Let's just see how that cuts together. That's more like it to me. It was maybe a little bit colourful before. Right, let's just... I feel like I saw a blue patch on her face as she leans forwards. Okay, there's a little bit there, so we're going to go into... Oh, we got opening. Okay, we're just going to put our clean white up a little bit in that case. Switch that to closing. Okay, that's much better. The skin here is still a little bit porcelain, a little bit odd looking. Let's see if we can just... maybe just add a little bit more colour into it. Still feel like there's a little bit of a blue just on her cheek there, a little bit of a blue highlight. Okay, it's an artifact of this thing taking care of the lips, I think. In that case, we can refine this. There we go, that's the blue, little blue mark I was seeing on her cheek before, which was bugging me. It was this third node here, the lip correction, that was interfering, so we just dealt with that. It can be so tempting sometimes, you just look at something and go, yeah, you know what, that's not actually a problem. Yes, it is, we need to deal with that. Okay, Just a little bit in the eyebrow, but nothing else. That's okay. Okay, let's see if we can. Got a little bit of a green stripe down here now that we need to try and deal with. Okay, nothing really appears. Okay, I understand. It's in that case, what we can do, we can add another layer to this stack, and we're just going to grab hold of this here, which is a bit awkward because it is a blue color. And we're only really interested in this thing, so we're going to garbage matte it out and then make it match in with the previous layers. So now in a group, we cannot animate our shapes. We need to be fairly confident that the shape is in fact going to be accurate throughout. And we might just, there we go, and we'll just tone that down a bit so it blends in, and there we go. So what we've done, we've added a third layer, and through a combination of a garbage matte and a key, we've just picked out the bit which is problematic. Tell you what I'm also going to do, I'm going to soften that key on the inside only. I'm going to soften the power window on the inside only. Okay, and there is some movement there, but it doesn't appear to be introducing any issues. Now that we've done that, we do have to check it through, because it could be that through, partway through one of these shots, suddenly she shifts and a big orange splotch appears on the wall. Cool, okay, this looks pretty stable. Checking through every relevant clip, we'll just do that one more time. Okay, and that's then solved that problem. So we'll just go back to our proof check that we were doing before. Maybe we'll tone the skin down just a little bit again. It's very easy to fall into the kind of back and forth pattern. Let's just check. Okay, cool. I'm just going to use a sat v sat, and I might bring some of the low sat values up, avoiding the skin. I want to try and bring the hair out a little bit more here. Without the other, without the face here going crazy. Okay, let's see how these two cut together. And now just a little bit more here. It's always quite difficult to get a match just so. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. So, we're okay up to about here. What we'll do is we'll green flag all of that, and we're going to save our work. Resolve does crash, believe me. You should have seen it yourself by now anyway. Cool, I'm happy with that, and I'm happy to put green flags on that. And we can go to the next scene. Here we have the bathroom. I was never super happy with this scene, but the client was actually really happy with it, so you never know. Every now and again you think, oh, this is really good, and the client disagrees, and then every now and again you think, okay, this isn't the best it could be, and the client is super happy for no apparent reason. It can be difficult to judge. This all comes together quite nicely. I think we just have to lean into the kind of lighting we get here, which is very pale, very kind of bloomy, ambient, ethereal. We can't really force it to be something that it's not, so even if we do have ARRI capture, which is good to work with, but it does have its limits. Okay, this is still looking all right. Okay, let's just... That one seems a little bit fierce in the highlights. Let's just go back and give it another go. Still needs to be brought down a bit. That's more like it. Now, I'm conscious of the fact that there's not a great deal of leeway with these shots, and if I believed there was more that could be done, I'd be going in and balancing some things in more detail, but secondaries, with the way the light has fallen, like trying to pull secondaries, trying to use secondary corrections on these shots isn't the best tactic. In fact, it just straight up doesn't really work. So we're just going to have to deal with that. Whilst it's not brilliant, it's presentable, and in some cases that's what we have to shoot for, because it can't all be perfect, but it fits in with the general feel of everything, although the paleness of the skin still bugs me. We can't separate that skin out. Don't throw hours and hours away trying to pull secondaries here, they just don't work. Okay, so the woodland. I'm going to come back to the woodland right at the end of this pass, because I know that's the one that needs the most work. It definitely needs quite a bit of work to make it fit into everything else, because it's kind of a little bit its own thing at the moment. We're kind of losing the cold touch. We've got warmer shades in there, so we're going to come back and have a proper good go at this later on. Going straight on to the dinner sequence. Now, this is quite basic, and as long as these three shots all cut together, might just bring the saturation in there down slightly. That's more like it. Might just bring those highlights and that saturation down a smidge as well. Cool. Let's just watch another few of these cuts and then we can green flag this segment because it's all pretty similar. Okay, cool. We'll save and then we'll green flag this section. Going from here to here. I'm okay with this being a bit more saturated. It's a closer environment. There's only this one light source down here, whereas whilst we see the lamp, there are clearly other practical lights. Well, there are clearly other lights. They're not practical because you can't see them. And we'll just scrub through this. That's good. Then we've got the callback to the whole cyan tint we've got in the rest of the film. And then we need to see how these cuts go. See how this all cuts together. We did quite a bit of work on this sequence. But this is slowing down a little bit. Let's just see how saturated that is. This might be a little bit saturated, so I'm going to turn that down a smidge and let's see how that goes. Okay, there's the... I'm happy with that. That's a little bit fierce now. We can tone this down, bring down that saturation a little bit. And then here we are in the morning. This could be brought down, the highlights here can be brought down ever so slightly. Cool, that's much better. Let's just take a look at the hair there. I feel like, yeah, there's some gaps in the hair. Cool, that's much better. There's a bit of a blue spot down here. Nope, that's fine. Okay, cool. And we're going to work on the woodland shot again, so we can put green flags on all of those, and we'll save. This isn't a super intensive second pass. Like I said, we're going to act as though we have a tight deadline on this one. And whilst I haven't spent 8 hours working on this, you should give yourself a limit of 8 hours. But especially for a short drama like this, if you've got a tight turnaround, I mean, this is the kind of work we could be expected to invest into it. And it's come out looking very good. It's come out, these scenes are great. The opening shot's fantastic. There are bits where the light works against us, and we've done our best. That's fine. We're going to come back to the woods. And then there's a bit here where it's not the most interesting, it's just someone's living room. It's not the best location. And I spy with my little eye back there the Mighty Book of Boosh, if anybody knows the Mighty Boosh from UK comedy. I used to have a copy of that myself, back when I was a student. Right, we'll come back to the woodlands, and so then we're going to go and watch through. Those highlights look a little bit fierce to me. I think I might just bring the highlights down a little bit and bring the mids up. Nah. Okay, I might just want to bring the highlights down ever so slightly on that one. So this is keeping in with the whole general tone we've got. We've got the kind of cool push to the background. We've got the very kind of muted colours. That's a really nice edit. I like how that's turned out. That's not a great... It's not a great asset, really, that shot, but it's working now. Okay, I'm in two minds about whether or not the skin tone of this actress here is okay. It might have gone a little bit yellow with the adjustments. I think that fixes it. Okay, and then Nick comes in. I just happen to know that actor's name is Nick, because I remember him from when I was in university ages ago. That's a really nice edit, that works well. That's looking good. Okay, this shot and this sequence is looking good, but we've got... I'm actually happy now with how those two shots cut together. So in this one, we're going to do our keyframing. So we've got our node, and we're going to open up our keyframing dialog, and I'm going to put a dynamic right here, and a dynamic right here. And we're just going to bring everything down. As this shot progresses, it's just going to get darker and darker and darker. At least it is right at the end, anyway. Okay, I've put that in the wrong place. Give me a second. Right. Then we're going to bring it all down. We're going to make it darker. As this goes on, so as we go, it's going to be slow, but it does actually get quite dark as it goes along. Maybe put a little bit more colour in there as it goes as well to kind of tie it into this next shot. So now as we go along, now the only thing that occurs to me is that skin tones are a little bit pinker in here. So what I'm tempted to do here is just rotate the hue of our skin. Because it is currently quite yellow. It doesn't have to be kind of super pink. And then that's fine. It gets darker and darker and darker as it goes along. And then by the time we reach this point, it's a much better fit and a much better match for this shot. I might just sort out the shadows because they're a little bit compressed. Cool, and then we come into this sequence. I might just pull a little bit of colour out of the skin tones. This is all cutting together really well. This was a really easy sequence to deal with because the lighting was very consistent. This is fine, I don't spot any errors here. These seem warmer than I remember, but it just could just be because... No, that's fine. It's because we've had a very blue sequence for so long, these now look a bit warmer in comparison. What we could just do is dial up the blue a little bit to make sure it does actually match up. So this is actually different from the previous shot, and we'll also kill off the skin tone a little bit, just to make sure that it's more congruent with this scene. And that's all cutting together really nicely. Okay, there's a blue gap in the hair there that we need to try and take care of. So let's see what we can do about that. Okay, let's just make sure that that last little adjustment is okay. That looks fine. Cool, okay. I'll get rid of those flags. I'm now going to put green flags on this sequence. So now I'm happy with those. And now we're going to go back and we're finally going to deal with the woodland, and after this we will actually be done. So again, this didn't have to take hours and hours and hours. We can work very efficiently setting up groups. Drama projects typically have, we have a standard two-hander dialogue sequence. We can actually work our way through these quite quickly if we set everything up in groups and the lighting is consistent. So you don't have to worry if you feel as though a grade is progressing quite quickly. Once you get these tools and you get these techniques down, you can grade quite a few shots very efficiently. So you don't need to worry if you shouldn't worry or feel as though you're not doing the right job because things are progressing faster than you might have anticipated. That's a very common thing amongst people who are starting out. They're thinking, oh, hang on a second, this is actually going quite quickly. Why is that? That must be wrong, but it's okay. Depending on the project, that's fine. So we're going to have another look at the woodland. Having watched the whole thing through, I now don't feel it's quite that bad, although it does still stick out. We're missing the cool tint that the rest of the film has, barring the nighttime bits. So I just feel like we need to somehow cool it down a smidge. We need to kind of introduce our kind of cool cyan green tint that we have in the rest of the project. So let's experiment with this one and see what we can do. Let's see, and this may or may not work. We can try an undertones adjustment. So what we need to do, we're not going to use hue or saturation in this secondary, we're just going to use brightness. And what we're going to do is we're going to use that to introduce a kind of bluish kind of tint, a bluish teal kind of tint to our shadows. If I turn that off and on, you see that we've now got very cold, steely looking shadows, and that might bring us closer into the rest of the film. You need to, whenever we do this, we need to keep an eye on hair. The hair's gone a bit blue here. I'm kind of okay with that right now. It depends if we run into that problem elsewhere. But we've got a slight blue tint to the jacket there. We've got a slight blue tint to the foliage. The foliage is now looking bluer, and whilst it's definitely not this, it's moving us closer in that direction. I still feel as though there's a magenta tinge to the highlights and to the hair here, which is bugging me. Let's just see what I get out of a... Yeah, and this is why I recommended we don't try secondaries, but we can. Yeah, see, we are getting quite a bit of violet in there. I just want to kind of deal with this violet problem here. Because that kind of weird purple halo around the hair is really bugging me. So, few things I can do. I think I'm just going to drag some green yellow into it and reduce the saturation. And now you have to look closely, but there's this kind of violet fringe there, and now we've gotten rid of it. In fact, I might just take that back, and there we go. Perfect. And now that's taken care of. So that odd little violet fringe around the hair is taken care of. Now let's see what we think of this. Yeah, and also bits of violet around the nose and everything is sorted. That's fine. So I quite like how that's come out. I quite like the steely quality of it all. That appears to be in the wrong group. And now I think we can make a better hash of bringing all of this together. We probably need to bring those highlights down a little bit and those mids up slightly to flatten it out a bit, give it that same kind of flat look, which we're now getting a much better going at. So we need to bring that skin back up ever so slightly. Cool. Okay. And now the final thing we're going to do here is we're going to go and we're going to do our undertones adjustment. We're just going to make sure we have the same kind of bluish grey tinge. Now we want to keep an eye on the hair here. I'm actually okay with that. As long as it's consistent, that's fine. But now if we see how these two cut together, I think that's much more coherent than it was before, so I'm quite happy with that. So now it's just a matter of going through and doing the same thing. These angles, I think, are more or less okay. We just need to go ahead and do the undertones adjustment. And whenever you make HSL, don't think you have to use all three parameters. You can use just saturation if you want. That can be interesting. But I've had one or two occasions where that's actually been quite effective. Cool, and then we're just gonna and then maybe pull a bit of colour out of that overall. And then we've got that bluish tint. I actually think we're okay here without having to introduce another undertone. We've kind of got blue undertones in the jacket back here, and it does look quite cold and steely already. So I think that's all right. So we just want to fix this shot here. And we're going to do our undertones adjustment again. Suddenly makes it much more atmospheric, much more kind of stylized. There we go, we've got nice bits of blue in the bark here. It doesn't look too blue, but it looks kind of... It's got that feel, it's got that steely thriller look. Oops. So I'm just going to take a still of that and boink, there we go. Oh yes, so let's see how this goes. Oh, of course, yeah, that's fine. So we start off very bright here. We're going to have to keyframe this. I'm going to put auto keyframing on for corrector 6, and I'm just going to in fact, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put 6 after 5 here because I don't want to pull the color out of the undertones. And as we go along here, I'm going to want to lay off until we finally reach here, at which point I then just want to, okay. Ease off completely. So now if we see the way this goes, and then we reach this point, that's fine. Cuts back there, so let's just see how this all cuts together now. Also, I'm going to save because we've done quite a bit of work. I'm quite happy with how this is cutting together. I think given the location and given the light, we've actually done quite well here. Because it's not an easy location to work with. This isn't an easy set of shots to grade, to be frank. Okay, just one thing that occurred to me is they're looking quite yellow in these shots, and those hands are very pink, so we might just and also pull the color down on those as well. Cool. That's much better. Cool. Okay, I'm now happy to put green flags on here. I'm going to clear that flag because we've done our keyframing. I'm now happy to green flag this section. And that means that we've now proof checked the whole thing through. I'll just take care of that. And I'm going to save. So I'm quite happy to call that final pass on this project. I think it's come out quite well. Some locations were more difficult than others. But considering this was a student project to begin with, it's a graduation film, it's quite a good quality student project, but still a student project to begin with. I think it's come out quite nicely. Maybe I'd put more time into the skin here if I had the time. But I'm okay with delivering this now, and the client got something. It was more refined than this. I put more time into it, but the client was very happy, and the feedback it got was very positive. So great, right. So now go ahead, feel free to render out and finish the project, and that's it. So this project, like I said, it wasn't as heavily led as the others. Going forwards, going to the other incoming practical projects, they're not going to be quite as thoroughly led as the previous ones, because as you progress in the course, you're going to require less and less guidance like this. As we go through the course, you're going to become more independent, and I'm going to be much happier in providing practical projects with fairly loose bits of guidance, a few examples here or there, and then I'm going to be happy for you to do your own thing. One of the things when you're starting out in the grade is getting hold of good projects to work with, and that's what I'm really happy to be able to provide in this course, is loads and loads of practice material. So yeah, that's kind of how we're going to approach practical projects going ahead. They're not going to be full-blown, 4 or 5 hour bits of video where I'm beat by beat covering what I'm doing. It's going to be it's going to be looser from now on. It's not going to be quite as heavily led. So I hope you enjoyed this. We've had a good variety of projects by now, and this now marks the end of the first phase of this course. Going forwards, we're going to have a stronger emphasis on more lecture modules. I will add additional practical projects as they become available, but it's not going to be at the 1 a month rate from the first 4 months. This time it's going to be as and when they become available. There will still be more practical projects, but there's now going to be a stronger emphasis on the tech aspects of things, making final deliveries to specific specifications like broadcast and web and cinema. And it's going to be a lot more about the kind of the professional parts of the grade, which aren't as fun or creative, but which are still quite important. So once the next lecture is available, click on through and go ahead.